I've been using chainsaws for a long time. Part of that time been making things with it, timbers and planks and stuff like that. Mostly just freehand. Some of the finished timbers and stuff that I made, I'd rough out with a chainsaw and then finish with an adze or a broad axe. But about, I don't know, 45 years ago or so, I got the chainsaw mill and started milling logs and lumber out with that. I used logs to mill two sides to make a log cabin, and once we came up here to Alaska, most of the lumber that I've used up here has been milled with a chainsaw mill. Did a bunch of it on the remodel of the trailer house that we had in town, and then of course everything in the shops that I made was all milled with a chainsaw mill. All the lumber in the house itself was milled with a chainsaw mill. I've got a Granberg, Alaska chainsaw mill, but several years ago an old fella saw me milling up stuff with my mill, and he had his own stuff, and he asked me if I wanted to buy it, so I bought a bunch of stuff from him. I got a whole bunch of these sawmill attachments and 4 power heads and a bunch of bars and chain and all kinds of neat stuff for a pretty reasonable price. Well, anyway, this is what I got from him. This is an original Alaska chainsaw mill, and say this one is all steel. You got steel tubing in here, pipe in here, and cross pieces, and this is I-beam here, or T-beam I guess here. This one is a long one set up for, I don't know what length that is, 50 inches? Yeah, 50 inches inside. Probably used a double-ended bar with 2 power heads on that. Anyway, these are the original Alaska chainsaw mills. The disadvantage to them is they're heavier than hell, and you've got to drill a hole in the bars to mount them on. That's not that big a deal as what a lot of people might make out to be. Drilling the holes in the bars is not such a big deal, but anyway, you got to drill a hole in the bars, and the bars mount up, these mount up flat on the top of the bars, and then you've got rollers here that roll down your guide. That's fine. You see, this one is really long. It's set up with an auxiliary tank here to run extra oil on the chain. We've got 2 power heads on here. You still want to run extra oil on that chain on that bigger one. Well, anyway, let me get this monstrosity out of the way. So here's a smaller example of it. Actually, this ends here are cast aluminum on this one, and the tubes here are steel. It still mounts the same way. You still drill a hole in the bar and bolt it up to the bar, and then you've got marks in here on the sides with a guide pin on it to set your depth of cut, and so that adjusts up and down the handle on here. So this one is about a 18-inch, 20-inch. But that's another one of the problems of these, is you just about have to have individual ones set up for every length that you want on it, every length of cut that you want on it. And so there's quite a bit to change these out. There's a bunch of bolts and hardware and stuff to change these out to longer or wider cut. Well, this is a setup I bought a few years ago. The guy in Florida was making these. It's called a Panther mill, and it looked like it would be okay, but once I got it, I wasn't too impressed with it. The welds on it aren't that great, and the paint is just Krylon spray paint, and everything is steel again, real heavy, so for packing it around. And then there's no gauges on it for adjusting your depth of cut. It's pretty rough. I never did use it. Once I got it, I didn't really like it, and I never did use it. And it'd probably work okay, but I don't know. Like I said, I wasn't that impressed with it. Again, it's heavy for what it is, and the guy says, oh, it's heavy, but once you get it in the log, it doesn't matter. But you got to pack it to the log to get it there. So, and I think this one is set up for 48 inches. Well, this is my Granberg Alaska chainsaw mill. This is pretty much the same as what they are now. This one's almost 50 years old, 45 years old. I've had it that long anyway. It's got aluminum extrusions here, steel pipe for the push pipe on it, steel posts, and this is a little easier to use because it clamps onto the bar here, although you got to watch because vibration and stuff, these bolts will come loose on you and it'll start sliding. But once you get everything set up and get right lock washers and stuff on there, then it works like a champ. You see it's got a nice scale here. You reference off this top face right here, and then it's easy to adjust. It's got just a U-bolt here, slides up and down on that post, and both posts are the same. This is the post here, and like I said, it's got a scale on it. Now I took a three-cornered file and filed notches in here on every 1.5 inch and then painted them yellow so they're easier to see. But here's the scale right here, and again I wiped paint in there, and then I painted this and then just wiped it off so it filled in the numbers and stuff so it was easier to see. And then on this one I drilled holes through it here so that I have access to the chain tightener on the saws. And this is because I use different saws on here. There's a couple different holes on it. I might even have to drill a new one for the new saw, I don't know. But like I say, these work pretty good, and I used and cut a lot of wood with it. Thing is, they're aluminum castings, and you see this one, this ear coming up here where the clamp for this push bar is broke, and I've had it welded back on. And the one for the other side, the thing broke, I think, through this notch where it was cut out to fit over the post here, and I couldn't get it welded. So it's lost. It's been 20 years, maybe close to 20 years since the last time I used this, and I had a heck of a time finding it. I finally dug it out, and I ordered a new part for it here, but it uses a U-bolt through here, and then there's an adapter on there that holds that on for a clamp. And I don't know where this broken piece is, so I don't know where that clamp went to, or that U-bolt. So I'm going to have to do something about that. Let's see if I can make something. That's what I got a lathe for, I guess. I can make one of these maybe. So anyway, this one was for a 24-inch cut, maximum cut. I adjusted it down back and forth. In fact, there is a guard that goes over the end of it here, out over the end of the bar, and I took that guard off because I was using it on a 36-inch bar, and so the bar sticks way out here, and it wouldn't fit on that guard. But anyway, it's, like I said, it's a 24-inch, and you can adjust this in and out on this. The extrusion here captures the bolt heads, and you just loosen these nuts up, and you can slide this thing in or out and set it up anywhere you want. And I would set it up, like I said, on a 24-inch bar or 28-inch bar, and cut that when I was breaking down logs, or on the 36-inch bar when I was breaking down logs. And then once I got them broke down into cants or got smaller logs, then I would adjust it down and put a 24-inch bar or a 20-inch bar on there, and then adjust this down for that. No point in pulling any more chain than you have to on there. So if you're cutting smaller stuff, it's just a lot easier on everything if you use a shorter bar on it. Well, now I've got that long bar on that saw, and this mill really won't work on that for what I want to do now with those big logs. So I got a hold of Granberg, and I ordered a kit, and I got this new piece to go on here on the top, and that's different than the old piece. This is heavier duty. This is actually a lot nicer. This is a piece of pretty thick channel aluminum milled out. So that's, like I said, a lot heavier duty than this with the casting here. Well, I think that's going to be pretty nice. But I also got longer rails. This is the push bar, goes up on top, and these are the rails that slide on the log. So I'm going to take all this stuff apart and set it up with these longer rails and stuff to put it on this saw. I'm going to have to go get a U-bolt and make the piece for the clamp on that, I guess. Well, making a little bit of progress putting this thing back together. Said I went to town yesterday after work and got U-bolts, and this one is a 1/4 inch U-bolt that was in this side over here. I got a 1/4 inch one, but the radius of it is a little bit smaller and it won't fit. Well, it seems like I remember making these or something, I can't remember now. But anyway, I got a 5/16 one, and that one fits just the way it's supposed to. In there like that. So I was missing one saddle. This is a saddle that goes inside the U-joint right here, that then clamps the post up to it. So I had one saddle, but I didn't have the other one. Well, I got a piece of aluminum and turned around the right outside diameter and then made a groove in it like that. And I marked it out and put it on the bandsaw and cut it out. And now I've got 2 of them. A little bit of file work on those, a few strokes on the file, and it got them to where it fits these perfectly. So that's good. Then on this 1/4 inch U-bolt, come with it. It come with this nut here that kind of like a T-nut or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, it's got this Johnson bar, Tommy bar in it that can tighten that up, so you can loosen it and tighten it without using a tool to raise and lower the depth of cut on that. Well, I only had one of those too. Well, I got some coupling nuts, figuring I would use a coupling nut on those and drill that out for a Tommy bar on it, and that would work. But they're not as big. Even this one for the 5/16 is not as big outside diameter as what this one that's on there is. So I made a new one. I have to have some hex stock that's the same size as that, and I made a new one, got it all threaded out, everything was real nice, except I didn't make it quite long enough to run the Tommy bar through there. So I just come out of the shop, I went up to the lathe and I made a new one here. It's a little bit longer, and I got a Tommy bar there. It's a piece of 1/4 inch. My hole there is a little big, but I broke off a smaller drill bit in there, so I had to drill it out and then punch the drill bit out through there. Anyway, I got that, and I just heated up the ends of these and peened them over, so now I got a thumb screw on there that'll work for tightening that up. So that'll work. My son, it's funny because drilled that out and threaded it. The threads, of course, didn't go down in there far enough. Well, my son got me for Father's Day or my birthday, whichever's which, they're only a day apart. But my son got me a bunch of sets of taps, and they had a 5/16 18 set of taps with the 3 taps in it, with a starter tap and a bottoming tap. So I was able to use that and tap that down to the bottom, so I got full thread on that. So anyway, now I can start putting that back together. I've got my carriage bolts there that slide right into the channel on that. Right. This end, this post over here, goes on the power head end. It's got a guide on it or slide on it to go against the cut face, and this one goes on the free end here. We'll see how it works. So this is how this works. This nut, just loosen that up, then you can slide this up, tighten that up, Same with this side. Alright, it's all together now. Now, these clamps right here slide right over the bar. I'll loosen those up so they hang down a little farther. This is a 42-inch bar on this saw, and this guide bars are made for a 48-inch bar, so they're a little bit long. And you got to watch. What I do a lot of times on these, if I'm setting up to mill a lot of wood, I'll take this fallen dogs off of the saw so I can get that in there a little bit farther. And then you got to watch out. He's got sprocket nose bar on here. If you put this clamp on there, clamp down on it out here, that'll pinch that sprocket nose. Okay, so I've got this clamp past the sprocket where it clamps on. It's on where the sprocket is riveted onto the bar. So I can clamp that down there. I've got plenty of clearance on both sides for the chain. So that's good. Same thing on this end. I got plenty of room on both sides. I'm not going to squeeze down on the chain, the groove in the bar, and tighten this down. Okay, that's it. I can tighten clamp down for this push bar, and I kind of like this new rail, this new piece here on this end, as that's an extrusion and it's pretty heavy duty, and then it's got this clamp here for this push bar, and you can undo it here and move it over to here. Now on this one you can see this was cast into it and it's kind of flimsy as it sticks up here. In fact, this one's been broken off once and welded back on, and it's not square. Well, anyway, that can be tightened up, and then this bar here can be moved. So like when I'm cutting my first piece of wood, I'm going to have a guide board down here, and we'll have this centered on the guide board so that it doesn't tip back and forth this way when you start it and when you come off the end. And then once we get the slab off of there and the top of the log is flat, then I can move it and center it wherever I want it. But yeah, and you see this one just clamps down. You would come with a Allen wrench to tighten this down, and I think I said that, but this can be moved from one side to the other here. Well, that's pretty good. So there's a chainsaw mill all mounted up. Now I've got index scale here on the end of these posts that you can use to adjust the height of this, both sides. Now I filed notches into these, and I'd had this one drilled out where I put a lock screw in there so when I get it down to the spot I wanted, I could lock it down into that spot. But this one I don't have that on there. But as I got better and better with this, it got to the point where I didn't need that anymore. At first I was having trouble with this, as you use it, the vibrations and everything, having this thing slide down and get out of square and not be set to the right depth. But after I got everything all set up and working a little better, then it didn't do that anymore. Anyhow, that's how you set up an Granberg, Alaska sawmill on a saw. There's one more thing to do with the saw before I use it, and that's to adjust the oiler so that I'm getting more oil through there. Chainsaw mill is all together. Now, tomorrow I'll go dig out the rest of the stuff for the mill, and we'll get it set up to start to use. So, I got the saw out, cleaned it up, got it started and running. I had to put a new starter rope on it and relearn how to start the saw. And I pulled the bar off and made up a new chain, 122 links of 404 chain. I got my Temco, or whatever it's called, chain grinder out, set it up for the first time, tried it on an old chain, and then ground this chain, the new chain, for a rip chain with a 10-degree top rake angle or top angle on the tooth. Put the bar and chain back on, and we got out the old sawmill, the 24-inch mill, which had the posts here and this end piece here, and I got a new end piece and new 48-inch bars, set up for 48-inch bars, and then I had to make a saddle for the clamp on this side and a new nut for the U-bolt on here, and get a new U-bolt cut off to fit. Oh, everything else was just hunky-dory. So that mill is ready to rumble. Okay, so I've got 3 different holes over here in this guide, in this post over here, for adjusting the chain tension. But on this one, the chain adjuster is in the bar plate here, so I might have to drill a new hole through this side here for adjusting the chain, and that chain will need to be adjusted. It's a brand new chain, so it's gonna stretch. There's a lot of heat on that chain and a lot of tension and stuff on it ripping. It's a continuous rip cut, and those logs are a little over 18 feet long, so it's a pretty long old rip cut. Anyhow, like I said, that's set up pretty good, I think. In the past, when I've used this, when I set everything up correctly, I've got lumber out of it, timbers and lumber out of it that would challenge anything anybody has put out. It's within even the rough lawn. I've got that 35-foot timber up in the house that's 12 inches by 14 inches, and that's within a 1/16 of an inch of square and true, the whole length of it. We've got 12 1/4 inches to the bottom of that. And I've got 12 1/4 inches to the bottom of that guide bracket. So that's good. That thing should be set up. Let's see what it's exactly 33 inches from one to the other, so 32 inches is going to be about the widest cut that I'm going to be able to make. If I took my dogs off of here, I could get another 1.5 inches. And I do have a 48-inch bar on the 797. I could, a 48-inch bar, yeah, a 48-inch bar on the 797 that I could put on there and gain a little more, but that's a 42-inch bar and a 48-inch setup. Oh, that's good enough for what I need. Like, those logs are about 38 to 40 inches in diameter, This will break them down. I broke them down that big before with a 32-inch bar and the 24-inch mill. So anyway, this will work. Alright, that's enough of that. Now I got to get the rest of the paraphernalia out and set up.